Sherman D. Manning joining you live from Los Angeles, California. The greatest man I have ever known was James Scott Manning, my father. The greatest man I have ever known was James Scott Manning, my father. One of the greatest men I've ever known was my uncle Melvin Jackson, who's also in heaven now. And but up there in the top five best men I've ever known is Rev.Hosea Williams. I would ask you to Google him. Rev.Hosea Williams, Hosea Williams, Williams. He walked and talked with Martin Luther King Jr. He was a strong, powerful, very important part of the movement. Just a legendary figure. And I worked for and with Reverend Hosea Williams from the time I was perhaps 16 years old up until maybe 27 or 28 years old, off and on. One of the most important days in the history of his life is the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The Edmund Pettus Bridge. Google some of this stuff. EDMUND, Edmund Pettus, Pettus Bridge. Trust me, I'm spelling it out, not because I don't think you're intelligent. I know that you are very intelligent. I'm spelling it out because perhaps my enunciation may not be as crystallized and precise as it should be. And the fact that I'm coming across podcasts, I don't know how well the audio is. I hope it's great. But he marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis. Hosea and John led that march. They were beat down in what was to go down in history as Bloody Sunday. That was Hosea right there. And I shall never forget, I used to love to hear him tell me stories of Dr. King and stories of my dear friend, Ambassador Andrew Young and Jesse Jackson, C.T. Vivian, Fred Shuttlesworth, Stokely Carmichael, and so many others who were involved, Ralph Abernathy, so many others who were involved in the movement there with Dr. King. Reverend Hosea Williams was a research chemist. He was a middle-class African-American man when there weren't that many. And he was in Savannah, Georgia, a research chemist, professional, had a master's degree in chemistry, and, living his life, and as they would say, having it his way. He was from Appomattox, Georgia. And I remember I could see it in my mind when he told me that he was driving down the highway in a Cadillac. He always kept a Cadillac. I've never known him to not drive a Cadillac. He usually had an Eldorado Barrett's signature edition convertible, red and white. And he said that to me that he was riding down the highway with his kids down the expressway. And over the radio, he heard this voice from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said when he heard that voice come across the radio, he slammed on his brakes so hard that his children's head went into the dashboard. He made a U-turn and drove and said, I've got to go to Atlanta. I've got to meet this man, Dr. King. I've got to work with this man. And the rest is history. He moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and became Martin Luther King Jr.'s chief field general. And he was the rabble-rouser. Hosea was very militant, very skilled at using the art of intimidation to influence the movement for that which was positive. A absolutely brilliant brother in his own right. Brilliant, just a scientific mind. And I have so many Hosea stories. I called him Doc, D-O-C. That was my name for him. And a lot of preachers call preachers Doc, and a lot of people call preachers Doc. And I found out that he called Dr. King Doc, and so it made me want to call him Doc. What a man he was. I remember that I took him to Selma for the celebration of the 30th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. I drove him down in his Cadillac, and I remember we went into City Hall, and we went into an employees only bathroom. And when we got in there, the chief of police told us that it was employees only. And Hosea said to the chief of police, "I will piss all over you. Don't you talk to me like that. I'm Reverend Hosea Williams." And the chief melted and trembled. And we stayed in the bathroom, and we used the employee bathroom, then we left. And Hosea asked me, did I know who the chief was when I left? And I said, no. He said, that was Bull Connor. Now, Bull Connor, as you might recall, was the guy who sicked the dogs and the water hoses on Hosea and Abernathy. How and why he was still chief of police that many years later, I have no clue. Was he acting? Was he retired and just in uniform? I got no clue, but I know that's who he was. But wow, Reverend Williams, I miss him. I really do. His motto was unbought and unbossed. UnBought and UnBossed. Now, if you look at the photo of Dr. King after he was assassinated on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, he's lying there in a pool of blood, and there are two people pointing on the balcony, basically saying that the bullet came from that direction. One of those persons is Ambassador Andrew Young, and the other person pointing is Reverend Hosea Williams. He was intimately close to Dr. King. And I will admit that every time I was around him, I felt like I had a little bit of Dr. King in my presence. And the same thing with Uncle Andy. And I learned so many things from that man and from Andy Young also. And I think what helped develop me and what helped develop my political views was the fact that Andy and Hosea saw so many things differently. And these were both Democrats. I mean, Andy was considered conservative by Hosea, and Hosea was considered, in some sense, radical by Andy. And both of them were Democrats. And both of them worked with Dr. King intimately. They were on staff, and they were friends. But it gave me a sense of being able to see both sides of the coin, if you will, and to think multidimensionally. And I think what we need more in society are people who will think multidimensionally, who will not just be zealots, who will not just be my way or the highway, who will at least see my point, see your point. You understand what I'm saying? And that's not a lot of balance now. When you start talking about the Tea Party, do they even exist anymore? You remember everybody was talking about the Tea Party and all of that? I haven't heard the term Tea Party in so long. I'm wondering, are they still there? Did they die out? What happened to them? You know, but that they were extremists in some sense. And I don't like extreme. Now, I want you to have your mind made up. I want you to be specific, and I want you to be, believe in what you believe in. And I want to influence you if I can to believe in what I believe in. I mean, that's what we are. We like to influence people. But at the end of the day, you don't have to see it my way, and we can still be friends. And I see a lot of that, the opposite of that going on in society today. Everybody's clicking up. Well, a lot of people are clicking up, not everybody. I want to be very precise about the language I use on this podcast, because lots of time people just put generalities out there, and the generalities are not true. And then someone else repeats it and repeat it, and then it starts seeming true. But what I want you to do is I want you to am I still on the air? I think I am. I hope I am. It's hard for me to figure out what's going on here. You know, this technology is something that I'm still learning. Y'all do understand that, don't you? I'm still learning this thing, baby. I'm trying. Okay, I think I'm still on. 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 I hope I'm still on. So, um, lost my train of thought here, trying to make sure I'm still on. Am I on the air? Yes, I am. Okay, and so lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'll try to get it back. I'll try to retrieve that thought if I can. So my point is, yeah, we've lost that ability to see the other side of the coin and to say, hey, you may not see it the way I see it. I may not see it the way you see it, but we can still be friends. We can still hang out. You know, some of my best friends are conservative Republicans, and that may be hard for some to believe because ain't nothing, there's not anything Republican about me. But I do see things from more than one side of the token. And I was always taught to have balance in my life. Balance, 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 balance. And that is what I like to see. Balance. And to be open-minded. A lot of people think when you say, are you open-minded? You know, it just refers to sexuality or something. But being open-minded means, you know, hey, baby, you ain't got to eat what I eat. You don't have to like everything that I like, but let's see where we can, let's find points of agreement. And this is what Andy Young always talked about and what he was always about. Points of agreement. Can we find an area in which we agree and then work to make that be what brings us together? And when you can find people who do that, then I think that it makes life a lot more interesting. You know, someone once said that if both of us agree on everything, then one of us is unnecessary. You get that? I'm going to try that again. If both of us agree on everything, then one of us is unnecessary. I really don't need you to agree with me on everything. In fact, if you do agree with me on everything, then it's going to make me question your integrity. And it's also going to make for a very, very boring friendship. You know, how can I learn anything if everybody who walks with me and everybody who's in my circle agrees with me? What stretches me is when I'm around folk who say, no, that doesn't make any sense, or no, I disagree with that, but do so in a respectful way. And they can stretch me. They can help me to grow and help me to become a better person. And that has always been my goal. I want to become a better man. I want to be a better human being, you know, and I know that there's always not only room for improvement, but there are ways to improve. And I'm about that. I live for that. I live for that. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of things going on right now in the streets. And as you know, those of you who listen to this podcast, I get a lot of my so-called creds from the streets. I am out there talking to the people. Sometimes I'm accepted. Sometimes I'm celebrated. Sometimes I'm rejected. Sometimes I'm relegated to the sidelines. You know, there's no easy way to put it. I never know what the crowd is going to say. But what I do know is that I am going to continue to let my opinion be known and let it be heard. And what I have tried to say to some of these pastors and these preachers is let's get, in some sense, out of the ivory